So you have a 2024 RZR but are wondering what are the must-have accessories? We're going to get into that video, so let's get it. Now let's be honest, everybody's a little bit different on how they ride and what kind of conditions you ride in, but to me, these are the must-haves for anybody out there, no matter where you're riding. Now, first and foremost is a roof. It is imperative, in my opinion, to have a roof. Now, in this case, this is a stock Polaris roof. The reason I went this route with Polaris on the roof is that it's only a single seam on the 4-seater instead of like the Kimimoto that's a 5-piece. It is must-have, especially in Georgia with the sun beaming down and the heat, but really anywhere, it is great to keep all the weather off of you, which leads us into the next thing, a windshield. Now, in this case, we have a polycarbonate by Polaris. Now, I will say, I was very hesitant on whether or not to use polycarbonate or to go and use a glass, but knowing how I ride and some of the crazy stuff I do sometimes, I didn't want to take a chance with breaking a windshield, so I went polycarbonate. Now, what I have here is the vented option. You must, in my opinion, have the vented option. You can easily close them right off if you want to, or you can open them up. And I will tell you, I had an issue with my previous windshield, but it was replaced under warranty, no questions asked. And all that happened, though, was that one of these little pieces right here actually broken and this piece had fallen off. Once you have those two things, you have to have a rear window. Yes, this is a aftermarket Amazon tinted rear window that I went with. Now this one, I will say, has kind of a little bit of a pain to put in because of one reason only, and it's mainly these little straps down here. Now I liked it because it basically has this big plastic piece down here. The top, it snaps in with the quick connects there, but the bottom, you have to run the loops through there, and it can kind of be a pain to get these through there because it's just not a lot of room with, well, big fat fingers. And the middle one is kind of tough to get to, but it is a must-have if you have the windshield and the roof, is to get you a rear window. All right, now once you've got those, you need to get you a set of tires. And you don't necessarily have to get wheels, but in my opinion, if you're gonna upgrade tires, upgrade the wheels. Now in this case, we went with 32-inch tires. These are ITP Intersects, and they are on a 15-inch 5x7 wheel. Now we decided to keep the front and rear wheels the same on this setup, so if we ever have an issue, we can just swap them, rotate them around. When I get a spare, eventually I'm going to have the exact same tire, and it'll be no problem to be able to swap around. Now the 32s also give you plenty of clearance between everything up in here. You don't have any issues with any rub. You're able to get full turn on them. These are basically a true 32-inch tire. At least when I measured them, they measured out, you know, dead on 32. And it's hard to tell on this machine, but it did widen the front end quite a bit. I have the fender flares on, which that is the next thing we're going to get to. But you can see the rear end kind of sits in just a tick, but it's not very much. Honestly, I've left it alone. It doesn't bother me. You can't really tell it with, especially when you put the fender flares on. That brings us to the fender flares. Now in this case, we went back with Polaris because, well, for one, I wanted something that was more seamlessly integrated and I didn't have to drill a bunch of holes. Now I have a complete install video on these fenders. They're super easy to install. Honestly, I have had good luck with them so far, but you know, I haven't really beat on them too much, but it did help a ton in keeping mud and stuff off. Now there are still some issues with basically dirt and grime that get behind right here on these fender pieces here. But overall, really happy with the fender flares. And to me, they are an absolute must-have for any machine. Up next, you need rear view mirrors, man. I would not go without these again. Now, I have the one in the center as well, but honestly, that one doesn't get used as much because, well, I just mainly use it for my daughter, keeping a check on her. But these bout side ones get used a lot. Now, these are from Walmart. They're like 20-something bucks a piece, I think. They've been very good. They'll flip up out the way if you hit something, but overall, they have enough angle to them. We've got them on both machines, and I've really been happy with them, but that is another must-have. Now, up next, you need a winch. You don't ever know when you're going to get in a sketchy situation that you're going to need. Now, in this case, we went with a Super ATV 6,000-pound Black Ops winch. Now, we thought about going Polaris, but honestly, the more I kept reading on it, the more I kept looking at it, I really liked everything that came with the Super ATV winch. We caught it on sale, and honestly, it blends in very well with the front end. Very easy install, and it's nice having the electric remote that is basically wireless, and you also still have the wired on the dash. So overall, really happy with this winch. It's another one of those must-haves. Now, kind of getting away from the must-haves, but are nice to have, the one is the rear bumper, because you know, it's just nice to have it there just in case if anything was to happen, somebody's going to get into you, or if you're having to back up and hit a tree or something. It gives you some protection back here. And it honestly just gives another place too to be able to strap stuff down. I actually have a trash bag type deal that'll go here. Is it a must have? Not necessarily, but is it a nice to have? Yes. Which that leads to the other nice to have, but not necessarily a must have, and that is rock sliders. Now in this case, these are custom made by us, so you won't find this style anywhere, but to me, it was nice to have that extra peace of mind, keeping everything from hitting on the bottom. We've got that there. It's a sacrificial thing. Now, honestly, if we bend those, we got some bigger issues because this is 1 3/4 DOM tubing, 120 wall. So very beefy, very heavy, but I wanted some protection there. Mainly too, if we get into something that we have to lean on the side, we can lean onto those and not necessarily the door and tear up those. Now this one I'm a little bit torn on. It is nice to have storage in here, and it's very nice box. This is a Polaris brand, but the problem, I say the problem, it's just difficult to get to. And I mean, I'm not terribly, you know, short, but it is kind of a little bit more difficult to get in here and to reach stuff, especially when it gets down to the bottom. You really kind of have to get in there, but it is nice to house a lot of stuff. In this case, I have the complete sides that go on for my side pieces here for the enclosure. They go in there very nice. Also have some miscellaneous stuff in there, a few miscellaneous tools. Really, I like it, but I just don't like having to get to it. It's not the greatest place to get into it. It's sometimes easier to crawl on the tire and get to things, which is part of it. But if you're looking for an easy access thing, not the greatest. Now, if you guys have the poor man edition like me, the other thing you're really going to want to add is USB ports. And in this case, we bought these off of Amazon. I'll put a link down at the bottom. But these, we just basically pulled these boxes out. There's a hole, not a hole, but there's a marking here already for you to be able to drill into using the factory. I guess I'm assuming it's the factory location of the original, that if you had the higher end models. We just drilled it there, installed those. Gives us power. We've got them on both sides, so both of our phones can be charging. Once again, phone mount, that is kind of another one of those nice to haves, so you can put your phone here. This is another one of those Walmart specials, clamps on the tube, does very good. Now the other nice to have, which you don't really see other than the outer perimeter, is the side-by-side enclosures. Now this is by side-by-side enclosures. And now I've got that on this machine, the 4-seater, because well, I wanted something to be able to take off and you put back on very easy. And really I can unzip, as you can tell, I can unzip the entire side. I can also zip it back up and just unzip the window portions. But being here in Georgia, we get a lot of, well, we get a lot of mixed weather. It's either could be really cold or it could be, you know, raining, or it could be super hot out. And I wanted something easy to change out. And this allows us to do that. And it is a very nice system that I like so far. Now on the 2-seater, we actually have the Polaris brand. Now the problem with the Polaris brand is that it's not as easy to take on and off. Now in this case, we have the upper door sections out right now, but it does have a very nice enclosure piece here, along with up here on the front. You've got a nice enclosure part. And you do get, which I didn't really like initially, these freaking door handles. Freaking fabulous. But the problem with this system is it's not necessarily easy to take on and off, because you have to undo your door screws that actually keep the door up and centered on the door, you know, where it needs to be at. So you have to adjust the door every time. Now, last but not least, I see a lot of people ask, what is the best intercom system, or what kind of radio system do you use? Now, I'm going to tell you, this system is not cheap, but to me, it is well worth it for many different reasons. And that is Cardo. In this case, we use the Packtalk Edge. Now we have a setup for me and my wife and ours, and then my parents have theirs and theirs. The thing I like about these Cardos is that I can be listening to whatever music I want to listen to. It doesn't matter what I'm listening to. I can listen to whatever music I want to listen to on this thing, and nobody else has to hear what I'm listening. It also helps with the noise. So these machines aren't necessarily the quietest things. You know, I have now getting to the point where I like to, you know, I like kind of quiet. So these things help mute that, but we're able to have a conversation wide open, and just like we're just talking to each other. So we could be wide open and just having a normal, I ain't got to yell, scream, or slow down. No, we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation car to car. We can put it on a mode that just me and my wife are talking as a private conversation. So Once again, it's one of those that's not a must-have, but it is very nice to have. I really like the Cardos. They are expensive, which is a downside, but man, they offer so much benefit in my opinion. You're able to make phone calls on them. You're able to, you know, talk one back and forth to one another. You can, I mean, you can do so much with them. You can snap them onto a helmet within a matter of a second, so you can put them onto the headset like we have here. So you have a lot of different options, and I think that's another one of those that's definitely a nice to have, and if you can swing it, go ahead and do it. I know some of you probably like blaring your music kind of loud, but you know, I like being able to hear my own stuff. My wife likes being able to hear whatever she wants to listen to. We don't have the interference from one to the other. So there are my must-haves, and a few of those that I really recommend you getting for your accessories for your 2024 and up RZR. But guys, let me know if you got something that you like better than I have down in the comments below. Interested to hear what everybody else likes, but these are my must-haves. We're going to end this video off here. I appreciate you guys watching, but stay tuned for the next one. We'll catch you next time.